ladies, this is Erica Johnston and welcome back to my channel. I'm sure a lot of you have heard some ridiculous gray hair myths that keep circulating, and I am here to debunk some of those myths. So that's what this video is about. So if you're interested in hearing about that, then keep watching. Alright, so myth number one is one that I'm sure a lot of us know, if you are silver haired, is that only old people can get gray hair. And I think the reason why this is sort of believed is because there are so many women out there, and men to be honest, who are dyeing their hair, so it's really hard for us to tell just how many, actually are gray underneath their dye. So, when you think about gray hair, a lot of us think old, right? That's like sort of society's way of thinking about it. So generally, Caucasian women tend to go gray in their mid-30s, Asian women tend to go gray in their late 30s, and then African American women tend to go gray in their 40s. So when you think about that, I just imagine how many women are out there that are hiding their silver hairs. You realize that it's not really an old color, it's just reality, right? So that's myth number one, and I just want you to know that if you're deciding to grow out your gray, I don't want you to think of it as just something that only old women should show, right? It's up to each of us personally whether or not we are ready, and it's okay if you're not too, but I think that just this myth of it being, an old person's color needs to go. If you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I started going gray at 16. So, it's pretty frightening, like as a 16-year-old to start getting gray hairs and be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna look old, and have this sort of thought in our head. But the more of us that sort of show the reality and the truth, then there's just less stigma that surrounds it. And then that myth can kind of dispel a little bit, and then gray just equates with anybody who has gray and it's not kind of an old person's hair color, if that makes sense. All right, so myth number two is that only permanent hair color can color our grays. Now for myself, what I wanted was complete coverage. So I will say this, that if you've got really resistant gray hairs, you will need permanent hair color to sort of cover the grays. But there are also other coverages out there too that can, blend with your gray a little bit more, such as like demi-permanents and that sort of thing. And I discovered that when I used the pink overtone that, yeah, it covered my grays. But yes, demi-permanents can cover your gray hairs as well. So, if you're in the transition phase and that's something that you're thinking about, it is an option to use the demi-permanent route. But I will caution you, a few of you have asked me, like, should I use demi-permanent to, to grow out, and will it just fade completely over time and then my natural silvers will reveal themselves to the world? I will caution you that there's a very big possibility that the demi-permanent color or semi-permanent color will not completely fade, and you will be left with a little bit of color residue on your hair. So just be aware, and then you may have to grow that out too. So that's myth number two, is that only permanent hair color can color your silvers. Myth number three is that the more you color, the more often you color, the faster your hair will turn gray. And this is 100% a myth. It may seem that way, but really what it is when you're dyeing your hair and you're seeing, the silvers or grays or whites, whatever, come in, they just seem to come in, like they seem to really, really show up against whatever color you've colored your hair. And it is that demarcation or, the difference in the tones, whatever, that make it appear like you're getting more gray hair, but it's not necessarily. So some years, yes, you're probably going to, get more and more silvers or whites, but just know that nature will take its course. So it's not the hair dye that's causing you to get more grays, okay? So that is myth number three. All right, so myth number four is that gray hair is naturally coarse. And so this is, a big myth actually. I mean, yes, our hair, seems to be maybe more wiry, more frizzy, that sort of thing. But the thing about it being more coarse is really actually because the white hair that's growing in, the shaft of the hair or the follicle is actually producing less oil or less sebum than the other hair, you know, that you've got, whether that's brunette or red or blonde or that sort of thing. So you're actually producing less oil. So the hair that's growing out of those follicles is actually drier than the rest of your hairs that are coming out, which is why, you know, your hair actually can look a little bit drier and can feel drier as a result of being gray. Your gray hair that grows in is also thinner than your natural hair. And it also needs so much more protection, much more protection, as I know. It needs protection from the sun, like UV rays, heat protection, humidity, chemicals, styling, all these kinds of things, pollution in the air. Your hair, your gray hair is sensitive, very, very sensitive. So it's not necessarily coarser, it's just, like I said, it's drier and it reacts differently than your natural hair. All right, myth number 5. This one is actually one that Nicole Johnston spoke about in one of her videos. And it was one that was told to me as well when I was transitioning. And that's that if you have gray hair, you cannot have long hair. And I mean, you've seen me, I mean, my hair's long right now. I just got it cut last week and it was even longer, and I actually liked it longer. So I'm gonna grow it back, you know, maybe down to about here or so. I love long gray hair. I think it's absolutely stunning, and so many women rock it. I mean, Elizabeth from Young and Grey 29, I've spoke about her several times. Her hair just keeps getting longer and it just looks better. And she doesn't, you know, there's this sort of also misconception, right, that if you've got that long hair, it's going to be kind of this wild, like sort of witchy kind of look to it. And the interesting thing is she doesn't use any heating tools at all in her hair, and her hair can look, you know, kind of a little bit frizzy and stuff. But the cool thing is just how good it looks on her. Like, the more natural, the better. It looks amazing. So, you know, I just think we can do away with that. Like, I mean, even that, I didn't add this as a myth, but even the idea that you have to make your hair like completely, you know, perfectly sleek, your gray hair, is just a myth. And that's something that I've kind of had to get over myself too, because my hair is very, very frizzy naturally. And, you know, to let it go natural is sometimes a challenge, but it can look really, really good. So don't worry about that, and don't let that be something that kind of holds you back from trying longer hair if you want. And if it's just not your thing, then don't do it. I mean, it doesn't suit everybody. As my hair, you know, starts to thin as I get older, I might not be able to pull off as long a hair. So you just have to do whatever style really suits your face shape and your lifestyle and all that kind of thing. All right, so that's myth number 5. And then myth number 6 is very similar to the myth number 5. And that's that you can't wear your hair in a ponytail. So, oh, and I should say this too. So this was another thing, the hair colorist, when I was going there to him, and he, you know, I was starting to transition, he said to me, never wear your hair in a ponytail. Like, that is just the worst thing you can do. And I love my hair in a ponytail. Like, I don't feel it's aging at all. I really, really like it. And I've seen a lot of beautiful, lovely ladies wearing their hair in ponytails, and like even older women as well, and it looks really nice. So I don't know, I guess if you're putting your hair in, you know, a ponytail and it's like frizzy everywhere, maybe that's not going to be the nicest look, like if you want to make it a little bit sleeker. But I don't know, I just think it's a huge myth. And again, I just feel you need to do whatever makes you feel good. And to be honest with you, I work out a lot, I exercise, I'm on the run, and a ponytail is my go-to hairstyle. So just a myth, you can totally put your hair back and you can style it in any way. Braids, up, you know, clips, whatever you want, and you can do it. Okay, so that's just a myth. Number 7 is that gray hair ages you considerably. All right, so here's the thing. I know that if I dyed my hair brown, like a good shade of brown, that it would soften my look and that I would look younger, you know. Like I'm 42 right now, and you know, I'm not going to pretend that this isn't slightly aging for me. Like I know it is. But, and I've had moments like I struggle. I do struggle, and I want you to understand that, you know, I mean, I saw this video that Lisa from Beauty 101 just posted, and her hair is so gorgeous. Like, she's just gone back to brunette and it looks absolutely stunning. And I have to tell you, you know, I look at her and I think, oh my gosh, like maybe I should just go back to brunette. I have these moments, and you know, maybe you have them as well. And especially when you're in the beginning stages, it's so easy to throw in the towel and just give up. But the thing that stops me every single time that I want to go and get the hair dye or have it professionally done is just the dye cycle. You know, like just having to dye my roots every 2 weeks. You know, it's really, oh my gosh, like it just takes too much of my own time personally that I could spend elsewhere. So that's the thing that stops me. And also the fact that my little sparkles, my little silver sparkles, they show up 1 week later. Like you can see them. And I mean, this is nothing to sneeze at. This is this is a lot of silver, right? And I have said to you before, I'm not a blonde. It's not my thing. I also have a lot of brunette under here too. So to go blonde, I would have to, you know, bleach all this. It's just too much work for me. So I'm really, really, really trying to embrace my silver hair. So just know that, you know, there are moments where you'll look in the mirror and you will feel older and that you look older. But that being said, I always go back to my old pictures of me with my dyed hair, like freshly dyed. And, you know, I don't miss having, you know, the little stains along the side. Like, I just remember that having, you know, going and even professionally done, like, yes, they would put Vaseline or put whatever it was, you know, the moisturizing barrier and stuff. But I always was left with this like slight stain because they had to go in real close here to get this, right? Especially this part here I found was the most resistant. So they really had to get in there, and it would almost like stain the scalp, right? So you'd see it every single time. So that stuff I don't miss. And I think if I don't get that, my brunette shade just right, the brunette shade can actually be aging. And so I've seen, you know, a lot of women with their kind of dark brown that they dye and then their silver, and I'll look at those two pictures side by side and I'll say every time the silver is much more flattering. So, you know, I just think it depends, right? But will it make you look much older? Not necessarily. Will it make you look your age? Maybe, right? So I think it just depends on sort of what you're going for. But an older woman who lets the natural gray go, I just think it can be very, very stunning. And if you're younger and you've let it go and you're just not loving it, then maybe it's not your time, or maybe you don't have a lot of silver, you have only a little bit and it's a little bit easier to cover up, then do that. So you just have to kind of do what feels right for you, okay? And just know that I'm honestly supporting you in whatever decision you make. So never feel like a failure in any hair decision you make. That is a myth, okay? That it will age you considerably. I don't believe that it will. That's just my belief and from what I've seen. And then finally, the last myth is that you need to dress differently. So I did one video about colors that look good with gray hair, and more specifically with like a winter skin tone, skin complexion. And I will say, you know, for myself, brighter colors definitely look better against the silver. So, you know, do you need to dress differently? No. And like, it also depends on your own skin coloring. And some women look good in, you know, autumn colors, which in definition wouldn't look good against silver, right? Silver hair, but you can pull it off. So I think you just need to do whatever style works for you, and maybe, who knows, maybe you'll end up changing up some of your colors. You still have the same, you know, style, but you just change up the colors that you wear, or not, whatever. So you just need to do you, and I've said that many, many times. So these are just some myths. You know, I mean, I'm sure that you have heard other ones. I'd love to hear myths that you've heard. If you want me to quash them or that sort of thing, just let me know in the comments section below. If you've got any questions, and if you're struggling, I'm here for you. I totally know where you're coming from. So with that being said, I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you for all of your messages that you've sent me, all of your suggestions about clarifying shampoos to help me revive my hair a little bit. And until next week, bye for now. I have to make sure that my record button is on because I have lost footage before. All right. I'd already seen okay. Myth number 5. Myth number 5. Oh, I was like, what is that sound? It's my ice machine.